about college application, career, and future. So today also is special because Jon Hartmann will leave the school in 1 month time, and we will have a new career counselor. So we thought that we should ask Jon to explain as much as he could before he leaves, for everything he knows and everything we should know before he leaves. And then Stefan will introduce the new career counselor that she will not be here today, but you will explain the policy of the school and what will come up next.
Yes.
Maxine is not here today. She had a very sad event. Her mother died, so she had to go back to Australia, and she's coming back this afternoon. So we will start with Jon Hartmann first, then Stefan, and then we have the chance to have 2 students from Prem who are now studying in great universities, and they will explain to you their experience and what are they doing now. So we will have Fa and we will have Nadia. So please, Jon. So we have a strong Korean community today, and I'm very happy, very, very happy they're here. So if there is any problem, you ask Jon to stop and you translate to your friends, and then you start again. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So, Kap, everybody. Thank you for inviting me along to talk. I hope it's okay if you don't mind me sitting down and going through this. I think it works well with the screen there. I've actually had 4 children of my own, 2 stepchildren and 2 children, my wife. And my oldest stepson left school at 15 and worked in a box factory, which he's now manager of. My other 3 children have all got university degrees. And my stepson working in a box factory makes a lot more money than my other 3 children who got university degrees. So it's not always the career pathway of going to university which necessarily pays the most money, but as a career counsellor, of course, we always try and get that option for every student. I also understand what it means to trust a school with the most precious thing in your life, which is your children. And time again, I remind myself to be worthy of that trust, to do the right thing by your kids, to make sure they have the best opportunities. And I think by sending them to PTIS, you've already taken a big step towards ensuring they'll have a bright future. So what I'm going to do now is go through basically what I do. Please stop me at any time that you've got a question or query or something like that, and or want further explanation. I will go reasonably quickly because we don't want to be here all day. I remember that you said that I'm to tell you everything I know. But Stephen didn't say that won't take long. But actually it would take quite a long time to do that. So I won't try and tell you everything that I know, just the basics. Okay. But first of all, I was trained with a career certificate from the New South Wales Education Department at a time when youth unemployment in New South Wales, Australia, was 30%. And they gave us a 2-year program which is like 3/4 of a master's degree in careers counselling. And we learned a lot of things. I spent 4 weeks at in-service conferences in Sydney. I did a week's work experience with one of the top career counsellors in New South Wales. And basically after 2 years I was very thoroughly trained in careers counselling. This didn't help me that much internationally. I learned my international stuff by working with other career counsellors, particularly the career counsellor from International School Kuala Lumpur, Paul Muir, who I worked with on the international side, and I learned a lot also from Sean McElroy, with an E, from Shanghai American School. So I'm basically I had two things. I had the academic qualification, and then I got the experience. I spent 5 years at CMIS, and I came under notice from Lister Hanna and David Baird because I was getting kids into MIT, Duke, Champaign, Urbanus, a lot of really, Carnegie Mellon, a lot of really good UCLA, a lot of really good colleges. So when I was offered a chance to swap over to PTS, I took it. And I've really enjoyed my 6 years here. Okay, prerequisites for getting into a good university. You've got to distinguish between career counselling and university application. They're two entirely different things. Career counselling looks at the strengths and weaknesses and aptitude of a student and tries to get them in the right pathway. And basically, by somewhere between grade 9 and grade 11, students kind of know whether they're a maths and science kid, or whether they're a fine arts kid, or whether they're liberal arts. So we try and choose broad pathways for them. Try not to be too specific, because people can always change their mind. What I've been using here at PTAS is a program from collegeboard.com called myroad.com. And you can get that from the internet, and it's quite good for around about grade 8 to probably about grade 10. It's a little bit babyish for grade 11 and 12. So grade 11 kids, I use the HUSIC aptitude test from Australia, which is a 300-question aptitude test. But you must find out what pathway a child wants to go on before you can actually advise them as to what university. University research takes place mostly in grade 11 and early in grade 12, and should lead to good university selection. What is good university selection? It's choosing the university which is paramount in the course that you want to do. May not necessarily be in the top 50 of the world overall, but in the course that you want to do, it will be very high up. Take, for example, University of Toronto in Canada. Probably rated about certainly in the top 10 in the world in engineering, and probably rated in the top 5 in IT. So if you go to the University of Toronto and for IT engineering or something like that, you'll get a very, very good education. So that's what we look at. We look at the course, and then we look at the university. Course selection being the most important. Now that's a hard thing for some parents to swallow sometimes, because they think, I want my kid into Harvard because Harvard's good at everything. It's not good at everything. And there are some schools which do things a lot better than certain courses in Harvard. Of course, it's got the name, and that name will help you later on. And I always say that if you go to a well-known top 50 university, jobs will come looking for you. You won't go looking for jobs when you graduate. And what I mean by that is top businesses, international corporations, will spot graduates from the top universities before they graduate. So in other words, in your final year at university, you may have a job already before you graduate. And this is what happens when you go to a good, well-known university. So I tend to take the top 50, top 100 as my guide to try and get that certainly one of the selections for a student. If you take the top 100, that is actually as a percentage the top 1% of universities in the world. So if you're getting into university rated somewhere in the top 100, you're actually in the top 1%. Once you've done the career counselling and you've selected the course, then we can move on to application. Some advice I can give you is to do work experience or shadowing. In Australia, we used to organise this with companies. In Asia, it probably works best with family companies. You work in your family company or in an uncle's company or something like that, and get some experience of the job that you want to do. Shadowing is a profession where you can't actually do the work until you qualify. For example, a doctor or an architect or engineer or a psychologist or something like that. They can't actually let you loose on a patient. What you can do is shadow. You can walk in their shadow all day and see what they do and sit there quietly and look at what they do and see if that's what you want to do. So that's what shadowing is. Other good advice is to talk to alumni of the universities, someone who's actually been there in the last 3 years, not 20 years ago. If you haven't been to a university in the last 3 years, you don't know that university anymore. University's in a terrific state of flux at the moment, due mainly to financial situation worldwide. Those that have been funded by the state are short on funds and they've been cutting down on various departments and stuff like that. So the latest information is the only information to take note of. And one of the things I do at the end of every year, and I'm about to do it now, is to throw out all the 2012 stuff in my office. No information is better than false information. And fees can change, financial situations change. We only got to look at the way the dollar's up and down to see that your whole planning for university could be faulty if you go on last year's information. So you need up-to-date information. Talk to admission officers at fairs. We have our own college fair where we get about 41 universities, but there are college fairs in Bangkok quite often. And I know some people in the room here have taken their kids down to Bangkok. The big one every year that we recommend PTS students to go to is one called the OCSC. It's usually held in Siam Paragon, and they have about 250 universities there. And those universities come from all over the world. China, Holland, Germany, lots from America, lots from the UK, lots from Australia. But what I have noticed over the last 12 years is the growing number of Chinese universities that are presenting. Once upon a time there was just Hong Kong University and that was it. Now there's 15 to 20 Chinese universities, all with programs in English, all a lot cheaper than American universities, but with highly qualified people running them. Settle on one country. I think it's a mistake to try and get into two countries at the same time. For one thing, you're dividing your effort, and the other thing is you're really showing your own confusion that you don't know what kind of education you want. An American university education is very different to an English one, and very different to an Australian one or a Canadian one. And you should work out, talking to alumni, talking to friends, talking to people you know, and talking to the career counsellor, what kind of education suits you, and settle on that one country, and then devote your undivided attention to getting into a good university in that country. No point saying, well, I got into Edinburgh University and I got into UCLA and I got into Hong Kong University. You can only go to one. You can't go to three. So settle on one and make that your main push. Take aptitude tests, as I said, the HASIC test, I've already talked about that. And then if you're there Friday night, I said, make a family decision. If the family's behind the student, that really relieves the pressure for that student. And know the family's supporting them. If you've got arguments in your family, settle the arguments before the student applies to a university. We don't want a situation where a student gets into a university and dad says, oh, I don't really want you to go there after all. And please base decision on reality, both academic reality about the standard of your student and also particularly financial. Now, I don't want to be critical at this stage, but there is a thing in Asia called saving face. And I have asked every year students to be very sure their parents can afford to send them to university. And every year I get the answer from some students, yes, they can. And so we spend maybe 40, 50 hours work, and we get them into a good UK or USA university, and then they come and see me and say, oh, I'm going to Thammasat or Chulalongkorn, Bangkok. I say, why? They say, oh, my parents can't afford to send me to the UK. Parents never could afford to send them to the UK in the first place. And so a lot of time is wasted, a lot of expectations are raised unnecessarily high for a result which can never happen. So please be honest financially. If you do need a scholarship to go to the USA, please make sure the career counsellor knows that, and they will then look at getting you that scholarship, finding schools that give good scholarships, and not recommending that you go to schools that don't give good scholarships. So make your decision based on financial reality and have a backup plan if things go wrong. Any questions so far? I'm moving pretty quickly. Okay, we can go through this fairly quickly. Factors to consider are the credentials of the student, both academic and others. And some of you, for example, were brilliant musicians or great sports people or something like that. That's the sort of thing you consider. We've got a boy this year with a sports scholarship to the USA. He's a particularly good soccer player. The nationality is pretty important too. The English requirements of a university, the country applying to, its dates and deadlines. You must know the dates and deadlines like the back of your hand. You really have to keep to these dates. Yes?
I have a question about, I think, I don't know if my situation is unique, but I imagine not with third country kids. My daughter has two passports, an American passport and an Italian passport. How do you determine what's the best way for her to get into a university as an international student or as a...
Yeah, well usually if she's got an American passport, it would be probably favourable to her for financial aid as an American citizen. You can apply for FAFSA, it's called. You can apply for financial aid as an American citizen, which you wouldn't be able to do as an Italian citizen. So I'd play the US passport for a US destination. Okay? It's very handy, it's an advantage to have the two. Now, like, America is always the 1st of January, and the UK is somewhere around the 15th of January. Canada is always the 1st of February, Australia is the 1st of November. Those are dates which you just have to know. And of course there's things like early application, early decision, which bring it right back to November the 1st if you're USA. But that makes it particularly hard for IB students, which is something I'll talk about in a minute. Some universities have got a particular specific style about them. They look for a particular kind of student. Trent University in Canada will give scholarships to basically anyone who is Burmese nationality. That's just their style. That's just what they have decided to do. Okay? That information is gold if you're Burmese. Okay? Those are the sorts of things career counsellors can help you with. The cost and scholarships. How does nationality help you or hinder you? If you're a non-native English speaker and you want to go to the UK, USA, Canada or Australia, English-speaking countries, you may need to do TOEFL or IELTS, or you may not. If your education has been in the English language for 5 years and the career counsellor writes you a note saying that your English is very proficient and you're doing grade 12 English, sometimes they waiver the TOEFL or the IELTS requirement. When I ask the Americans about this, they say they have American citizens throughout the world who can't speak English. That's why they have to insist on it. There's American citizens who've grown up speaking Spanish and can't speak English. So you can't send a person who can't speak English to an English university. So they require that. As I said, you may need school verification of ability and length of English education. Or you may not. Take Melbourne University, which is probably close to being the #1 university in Australia. It says, completing the final 2 years of secondary education at a school where English is the medium of instruction and assessment, and gaining a satisfactory pass in English in the final year. So in other words, you go straight from Prem to Melbourne University. You don't have to do IELTS, you don't have to do TOEFL. Yet another university may require it. So these are the things you see your career counsellor about to find out what is required and get a program going. Here's the dates and deadlines for you. USA 1st of January, some earlier, some later, some rolling, some rolling is you can apply anytime, and some with early application and early decision, some not. UK, January the 15th. Canada in February. Australia, November after graduation. Australia, you could actually graduate from Prem, get your IB diploma, and still have time to apply. So for many kids, Australia has been like a safety. If they don't get into their #1 choice, say, which might be the USA or the UK, they can always apply to Australia later. And the standard of education there is high. It's they've got good universities. They don't have many scholarships. And right at the present time, Australia is out of favour with international students because of the high Australian dollar. And Australian intake of international students has dropped from 90,000 last year to 40,000 this year because of the high Australian dollar, high standard of living. That can change, but that's the situation right now. So you need to know the dates, deadlines, the specific details of each country's system and each university applied for. If you're applying to the UK, you are allowed 5 choices in a brilliantly designed centralised system, designed to make it easy for careers counsellors to help students. It's run by a group called UCAS, and they control all applications to every single UK university. So in other words, what the UK has done, instead of having an admissions section at every single university, they've got one centralised admissions system. You apply to that one system, you're allowed 5 choices for 1 fee. So it's really rational, it's really well worked out, and it is starting to get more and more user-friendly. At first it wasn't. There were quite a few hiccups. If you miss out on your 5 choices to the UK, there's a thing called clearance, which you can join. And that will then offer you positions that are vacant in any university in the UK. So you have a really good chance of getting in, even if you miss out first time round. All the application is online. You require a transcript, teacher reference, predicted grades, and personal statement, and it's all done before January the 15th. You can find out all about it at www.ucas.com. USA has individual applications to individual universities. Each university in the UK and the USA has its own admissions department. The accepted deadline is mostly the 1st of January. In a country the size of the USA, with 300 million people, huge area, you can't generalize. California is not quite the same as New York, or Florida, or Washington State, or the Midwest. There's a lot of differences, so you really have to check the individual university's requirements. But the USA does have one common thing, it's called the Common Application Online. And this is what requires the counsellor to fill in and to write a reference for every student. So in other words, any student going to the USA or who has gone to the USA in the past, I've written a reference for. Not just written a reference, but done a big tick box with about 20 different categories in it. It also has the proviso that do you know of any reason, any criminal offence or drug offence and all this kind of thing that the counsellor must tick off on as well. And if you want to talk to them, you can tick a box as well. Okay, they require you to do a student essay. You require teacher references, usually 2. And these teacher references are absolutely crucial in the USA. When the head of Columbia University was asked the question, how do you decide when it comes down to the wire between this student and that student, both with the same grades, both with their same SAT score, which one do you choose? He answered, teacher reference. We believe what the teacher says, we look at what the teacher says, the teacher knows the student the best. So I can tell you that I read the teacher references very, very closely. And I get 3 references for every single student, even though I will only use 2. But I don't tell the teachers that, and please don't go out there and tell them. Because some of them are writing references that will never get used. But we pick the best 2. And if I'm not happy with the teacher reference, I send it back to the teacher. And what I particularly do is not so much change what the teacher says, as to give the teacher an idea of the slant to give that reference for that particular application. It may be a service slant, it may be an academic slant, it may be a sporting slant, whatever that the university is well known for, what it likes. You're doing Boston College, probably sport maybe. You're doing Duke, what, service. Yeah. But you know what I mean, there's a slant. Every university has its own particular way of looking at things. And if the teacher reference backs up that slant, without lying, without making it up, but just emphasising that part of the student is advantaged. That little word on the end is very important, grades. Grades really matter. We can talk about a lot of things, but if you don't have the grades, it is really hard to get into a good university. Grades matter. Notice I say may require a SAT score. Mostly anyone going to the USA should be advised to do the SAT just in case they go to a university that absolutely insists on it. I'm pleased to hear from NYU, Abu Dhabi, that they will accept predicted grades for the IB diploma, and you don't have to submit a SAT score. That's a really world-famous university that you don't require the SAT for. Most do. And what we organise, therefore, is SAT coaching, usually with ACE in Chiang Mai, and we do the SAT here at Prem 6 times a year. So it's easy for a Prem student to do the SAT. And they can do it more than once. And the university will accept your best score. Sometimes you have to do SAT 2s, and an SAT 2 is a subject test, like mathematics or literature. It's a 1-hour test. And it's run at exactly the same time as the SAT 1. So the SAT 1, which is mainly a reasoning, maths and English style test, goes for 3 hours and 45 minutes. The SAT 2s go for 1 hour each. You can come in and you can do a 1 hour SAT 2, a 2 hour SAT 2, or a 3 hour SAT 2. It's up to you. So it's very, very flexible. But these SAT scores are useful. High SAT scores, almost essential to get you in a good university. And they have a habit of staying with you.